Apple continues to dominate the landscape with their latest MacBook Pro lineup. Intel desperately wants Apple to come back, and AMD might not be down for the count with 16 Core Mobile chips. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast. All right, let's get ahead and start talking about Apple's big event yesterday where they showcased all of the new stuff. So there was a few key announcements that we should pay attention to. Number one is that they have two brand new MacBook Pros with all new designs. 14 and 16-inch models, no touch bar, has the MagSafe port back, HDMI port, 3 Thunderbolt ports, an SD card slot, a headphone jack, and I think I mentioned the MagSafe charger. Anyways, it's actually a Pro laptop. It also has a notch, which does not include Face ID, which everybody's really salty about. They also have 2 new custom chips that are going into these devices, the M1 Pro and the M1 Max. That's right, my friends. You can put your M1 Max into your Apple M1 Max, M-A-C-S. Good job with that naming scheme, Apple. It was Max. Yeah, good. It's just you're phenomenal. I have the M1 Max Pro, MacBook Pro. Okay, I've got the Max one. Yes, I know you're on Mac. I can't come up with a better joke than that. It's just a really stupid naming scheme. Also, the laptops are getting ProMotion and mini LED display, which ProMotion means that it's up to 120 hertz refresh rate. The MagSafe is back, as well as the fact that they launched new AirPods and then multiple colors of the HomePod Mini. Here's the design of the MacBook Pro. We actually talked about this in yesterday's episode of Hot News. This was the leaked design with the notch. A lot of people okay with it, a lot of people not okay with it. One of the big things is that Apple is not removing any screen space to add this, and instead they went with a 3:2 aspect ratio, so you are getting an extra little chin at the top, like those little 2 sides around the notch. The biggest issue here is that it's not really a functional space. Like, there's plenty of other laptop manufacturers that have been able to include a 1080p camera while not looking that hideous, but I think a lot of people would be willing to forgive the notch if it included a Face ID sensor, which it does not. There's no facial biometric recognition on this thing at all. It's just a notch on your freaking MacBook Pro device. Absolutely horrible. But the 14-inch model comes in at a resolution of 3024 by 1964. The 16-inch model is 3456 by 2234, and again, up to 120 hertz. Now let's go ahead and talk about those chips that are going to be put in these things, because holy crap, the M1 Pro and the M1 Max might just wipe the floor with every other laptop that's basically on the market right now. 33.7 billion transistors in the M1 Pro, up to 32 gigabytes of memory with a 10-core CPU and a 16-core GPU, which, given the performance of what we know from the M1 regular Max, this seems like it could put a lot of different things to shame. With the integrated memory, it has 200 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, as well as its 16-core neural engine. This thing is looking to be pretty gosh dang good. And then the M1 Max, which is the Max daddy of them all, up to 64 gigs of unified memory, 57 billion transistors. Same core count on the CPU at 10 cores, but up to a 32-core GPU, and especially with the metal acceleration that Apple has on their stuff when it comes to their GPUs, that's going to be quite good. This is a replacement for AMD GPUs, honestly. This is looking to be really solid of a chip. And just to put that into perspective, this 400 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, if we look at an EPYC chip, if you use up all 8 channels, you have roughly 170 gigabytes per second at 2667. So I mean, even if you overclock that a little bit, Apple's gotten more memory bandwidth coming on those SoCs, which obviously you can't compare apples to EPYCs because this is, you know, replaceable RAM, whereas if the RAM on your SoC on your M1 Max Mac dies, then you got to replace the whole damn thing. But just in general, looking at the overall raw spec performance, up to 1.7 times the previous generation, more power efficient on the 5nm process. These are looking to be good, and obviously reviews coming out, we'll have to wait and see for third party. But pricing is looking a little pricey. However, given the fact that they are bringing back Pro features to the MacBook Pro, I think is a little bit more justified than otherwise. $1999 is the starting price of the 14-inch, and it goes all the way up to $60.99 for the highest end 16-inch version, which gets you that 10-core CPU, 32-core GPU, as well as up to 64 gigs of RAM, which the 64 gigs of RAM, you can only get that on the 16-inch MacBook Pro, which, I mean, if you need it, you need it. If you don't, you don't. Obviously, you're paying a pretty penny to add that RAM in there. I know there's going to be a lot of comparisons where it's just like, oh, you're spending an extra $3,000 to get another another 16 gigabytes of RAM. I could get 16 gigabytes of RAM for $200. It's not the same. It's not the same RAM because it's built into the SoC. You can't just plop it in. It's more locked down, but at the same time, it's faster. Apple's silicon has been phenomenal. What's even more phenomenal is the fact that you're willing to pay that much for a MacBook Pro, but my friends, well, let me grace you with the goodness of the real thing, the real beauty that Apple dropped yesterday, their polishing cloth for $19. Look at that bad boy. I wanted to caress my face so smoothly. You think Apple's upcharging you for all of the cables? No, my friends. This is the most premium cloth that you could find on the face of the planet. And look, it's compatible with so many different Apple devices. The Apple 13 Pro, Pro Max, going all the way down to the iPhone 6 Plus. If you're on an iPhone 4, however, that's a piece of crap. You can't wipe your Apple cloth on that nonsense. You can go down to an Apple Watch Series 1 and an iPod Shuffle 4th Gen, but do not use the Apple cloth on an iPhone 3GS. Not supported, my friends. $19 to get you a gosh dang cloth. It's absolutely beautiful. You can get it by October 26th if you order right now. Also being updated was Final Cut as well as Logic Pro with support for 8K video, motion graphic tracking, as well as better processing thanks to the new M1 chips and saying that it can process 8K ProRes full resolution streams, 7 of them at the same time using these latest chips that Apple's producing, and these MacBook Pros can support up to 4 external displays in case you want to have all of that, up to 2 external displays at 6K resolution 60 Hz and up to 3 at 6K, or 3 6K resolutions and 1 4K at 60 Hz on the M1 Max in case you want to have a wicked setup with all of the display XDRs that you could possibly fathom and drop $75,000 on your total setup, which doesn't make sense for the average consumer or the normal person who's watching hot news, but there are absolutely use cases where that's going to be possible. And it does look like these are hot items because right now they're hard to get. Some of the shipping dates on some of these MacBook Pros are shipping out to late December. If you go over on Apple's website, most of it's middle of November, but I loaded this a while ago. Let's see what it's like right now. Still mid-November. What about the 14-inch? So okay. The times have come down. Maybe they're producing a little bit more than was initially reported. But suffice it to say, the rumors were true. Everything that people thought Apple was bringing back to the MacBook Pros has happened. You have to wonder if they did this because they realized that they could force people to upgrade. If they didn't provide USB-C ports and they didn't provide an SD card and they didn't provide MagSafe or an HDMI port to the other MacBook Pros, if they did it to this one, then they could force everybody off at Intel because you would obviously want to upgrade. And based on what I'm seeing on Twitter, the initial response is that everybody's saying, yes, please, Daddy Apple, give it to me hard Apple. Also being updated, just a little throwaway, is that there's a new AirPods Pro MagSafe charging case for $250 in case you want that. It's expensive. I don't know why you would do that. But what do you think of Apple's new launches? What do you think of the M1 Pro, the M1 Max, M1 Max that have come out? Let me know. I want to hear from you down below in the comments. And I also want to let you know about today's episode sponsor, ButcherBox, my friends. I've talked about them several times. ButcherBox is how we get our meat here delivered at the Sticklemonster household, straight to our door. 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, pork raised crate-free, wild-caught seafood. It's absolutely delicious, super affordable, coming in at under $6 a meal. Shipping is absolutely free. It's high-quality meat. It's delivered really easily so that you don't have to worry about picking it up at the grocery store. And if you use our link in the video description right now, you can get a 10 to 14-pound turkey for free in your first box. Yes, my friends, you obviously know that that big holiday is coming up, the one where we all eat turkeys for some reason. Well, you could potentially get a free turkey if you use our link to sign up for ButcherBox at the link in the video description. Multiple different boxes you can choose from. You can make your own. You can choose from the prepackaged ones. But big point is, if you use our link, you'll get a free turkey. All right, I'm saving you. You don't have to remember to go to the grocery store for a turkey. You just use the ButcherBox. And Apple was saving themselves from Intel, but Intel says, hey, please, pretty please, just come back. All right, we know you have really good M1 chips, but we want you back. Pat Gelsinger saying in an interview, I never give up on the idea of anything not running on Intel chips. Okay, your coffee maker, Intel. Your little banana bread stand, Intel. Your freaking toaster, Intel. Your clock upstairs, Intel. Your grandmother, powered by Intel. Everything's got Intel inside. Continuing on to say, Apple decided that they could do better chips themselves than we could, and they did a pretty good job. Really, Intel, they did a pretty good job. They're freaking crushing it. You kidding me? They knocked it out for their first laptop chip. They did a pretty good, come on, man. Saying, so what I have to do is create a better chip than they can. I would love to see it. Let's see it happen, Intel. If that's what it's got to take for Apple to go back to you, I want to see it. I want to see more competition in the market. I love seeing what Apple's coming up with. I want to see Intel give us some better stuff. And in a little bit, we'll talk about what AMD might have coming up their sleeve. But Intel does have some release dates coming out. New leaks coming out about the launch of Alder Lake, which it looks like pre-orders are going to start on October 27th, with the release and reviews and sales embargo happening on November 4th. So just about a week and a half away. So mark your calendars for that for some reason, in case you want to rehaul your entire PC with DDR5, PCI Express 5, a whole new motherboard, a whole new chipset, and then fight with the fact that this is going to be a brand new architecture that's going to have issues like with de novo DRM because it's not actually up to date. This is something that we did see when AMD launched Ryzen. Because it was a brand new architecture, it kind of struggled with a few different applications. It looks like Intel's now going to be going through that growing pain when it comes to the heterogeneous architecture on Alder Lake. So get your calendars ready. I know it's something to be excited about. All right, Apple has the philosophy, it just works. Intel has the philosophy of, gosh dang it, we need to sell more of our stuff because nobody's buying it. And you know what I'm not buying? That you're not ready for Cryptostonks. Let's get into it. I'm slapping the table a whole lot today. Bitcoin down 0.63% to be at just roughly under $62,000. Ethereum also down 3% to be at 37.56. Dogecoin up slightly. Ooh, cheeky little Dogecoin to sit at 24.4 cents. You love to see it. GameStop up slightly on the day, 1.49% increase to close at 186.02, and AMC up a large 5.62%. You're doing it, AMC. I'm proud of you. Look at that, 5.62% closing at 43.03. And you can't close on buying Elden Ring because it got delayed. I'm so sorry. There's going to be a closed network test in November in case you want to check it out and want to be part of that. But Elden Ring getting delayed to February 25th, 2022, which makes February a very busy month for video games. Horizon Forbidden West also supposed to be coming out during that month. People's wallets and video game systems are all going to be hot and bothered. And Toyota was hot and bothered that everybody was getting ahead of them in battery technology. They don't want battery electric vehicles out there. They want plug-in hybrids or regular hybrids, okay? They've been petitioning Congress for this forever, and when it doesn't seem like Congress is going their way, they announced that they're going to invest in a battery plant in the US for $3.4 billion, create 1,750 new jobs, and make it so that they are just going to cave to the future that everybody knows is inevitably coming, which is Linux gaming. You heard it here first, folks, here on Hot News. Linux gaming's the way of the future. Nobody else has been saying that. I don't know what Linux bros have been talking about. Valve releasing a program that gives you deck verified games, which allows you to know whether or not a game on the Steam platform is going to be able to play on the Steam Deck appropriately, showing off with different games that they do have. The entire Steam catalog should be tested by them. You can see here that Ghost Runner is verified. Team Fortress 2 is playable, but may require some manual tweaking. Half-Life Alyx not supported because it's a VR game, and Day of Defeat not yet tested, but they should hopefully have that done by the time the game console comes out. So they're showing that it works on input, seamlessness, display, and system support, running all on Linux. You can see here on the store page that they're gonna have a little check mark to show you whether or not it's good. I get more excited for Steam Deck as the days continue, my friends. I'm very hyped for this. And you know what else you should be hyped for? AMD's laptops, all right? 16 cores, Zen 4 on mobile. Everybody's talking about how we need more than 16 cores on desktop. And maybe AMD's saying, nay, you need that on a laptop, all right? Zen 4 Raphael H chips coming in with 16 cores. Is this how they defeat Apple and their gargantuan M1 Max? Not the Max, M-A-C-S, the M-A-X, all right? It's very confusing, Apple. Please change your marketing. You're really bad at this one. With several well-known leakers coming out and saying that Zen 4 16-core notebooks do appear to be in the lineup, and it should be Raphael H instead of Phoenix, which is just a different designation, but we could also potentially see these combined with RDNA 2 GPUs, which I'm just so happy about this. I want this. Holy crap, 16-core mobile with RDNA 2. Is it Christmas? AMD, sign me up for this. And you sign me up to this episode being over. Why don't you go check out yesterday's episode of Hot News, where we talked about how Windows is now fixing all of the AMD bugs it had for Windows 11. And I'll see you tomorrow for breakfast, my friends. Chip, chip, Cheerios.